Hi, everyone. This is Carl Seidman, principal of Seidman Financial, and I'd like to spend a few moments with you today walking you through one of my favorite data aggregation and modeling techniques. One of the biggest challenges that FP&A professionals have is getting information extracted from a system and laid out in the right way so that it is useful and meaningful. Rather than having to program the ERP or learn SQL or activate and utilize Power Query, we can actually do this very effectively using native Microsoft Excel. I'm going to walk you through the technique. It is going to save you loads of time and hopefully change the way that you do work. As you can see here, this is probably one of the world's most simplistic P&Ls. The intention here is not to do something that is overly simplistic, but it is to make it clear and easy for you to understand these techniques. Now, if we take a look at this basic forecast, let's take a look at cell F6, revenues of January 2021. We have a command here. We have a formula of two commands, specifically the SUMIFs function as well as the indirect function. Now, it's very important that I walk you through both of these so we can understand the syntax. So down here, I'm going to type in SUMIFs, and let's take a look at the way that this formula is set up. My guess is that many of you have seen this before, but there are really three key elements of it. There is the sum range, the criteria range, and then also a given criteria. So the first argument is saying, well, let's take a look at a range of numbers or range of balances that we are going to sum. Now, of course, we take this a step further and we say, well, what are we going to sum? What is the criteria we're going to use? And if we were to take a look at criteria range number 1, that's going to be the range upon which we assign a lookup of sorts. Criteria 1 is going to say, well, we want to look up a certain criteria within the range of criteria, and where that is true or where that criteria is met, take the sum of all of those values. So simple enough. That's the way that SUMIFs is going to work. Now, something that you can also see is there's this ... this continuation of the formula. Now, what the SUMIFs allows us to do versus SUMIF is it allows us to have multiple criteria. So we could say if this is true and that is true, then sum all of those figures. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Now, the second command that we want to take a look at is the indirect. Now, taking a look at this, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but the very first part of the syntax says reference text. And the best way that I can explain this is that a reference text is a string of text. We're going to use a string of text to tell Excel where to look. So let's take a look at this very first formula. SUMIFs, the first part of the command is this range, so indirect F27 to F29. The second element is the criteria range we want to look at. And then the third element is criteria number 1. So in essence, we want to say, well, where criteria number 1 exists within this criteria range here, sum all of these values. And then finally, the second criteria is saying, well, here's the second criteria, where this is true within this range, sum all of those values. So let's take a look at what's actually happening here. Now, again, this is January 2021 revenues. Indirect F27 and concatenated F29. Let's take a look at F27 and F29. So essentially what this is doing is it's saying, well, find January 2021 GL, standing for the general ledger. And then also we want to find near January 2021 general ledger, the header that is equal to brackets total brackets. Now, if you could just take a look down here at the worksheets that I have in this model, my guess is that some of you are already a step ahead and saying, well, January 2021 GL, my guess is it's in this worksheet. And in fact, it is. So if I were to select all of my data here, this is what is called a table in Excel. I personally go a step further and I call it a dynamic table because this is dynamic and it's always going to expand and contract as we add or remove data. If you take a look up here in the top left, you can see that the name of this data table is January _ 2021 _ GL. And again, if we take a step back here, that's exactly the same name that I have here. Now, also within January 2021, within this table, we have this column where you can see total exists at the top. So what this function is going to do, or what this formula is going to do, is it's going to say, look within this model, find January 2021, and for the summation of the values, take a look at the column that says total. So that is what is happening in this first part of the formula. Again, let me just point here. Indirect F27, take a look right here in this table, and F29, take a look at the total column. While it seemingly is complicated, at least to look at, it's actually very straightforward in the way that this looks. Now, the second element is saying, well, let's take a look at a column, and we're going to look up the criteria number 1 within this criteria range. Very, very similar to the first element. Indirect F27. So again, it's taking a look at January 2021. But instead of taking a look at the total column, what it's doing is it's taking a look at F28, or specifically GL account. Let's take a look back at our data. Here is the column GL account. So essentially what is taking place here is it's saying, well, where a certain GL number is located, sum the values that are true to this GL account. So let's take a look back again. So within this range of information, if something at C6 is equal to or greater than the value, then pull those values in the table. So let's take a look at C6. C6 is located right here. The GL start range is 4010. So in effect, what is happening is it's saying pull any GL accounts where the GL is at least 4010 and higher. You might say, okay, well, that's fine, but wouldn't that take a look at any GL account that's north of or greater than 4010? Yes, it would. However, let's take a look at this second criteria. The second range that we're going to be looking at within the GL is, again, F27 and F28. So January 2021 GL, taking a look in the same range that it was before. However, criteria number 2 is saying, well, let's take a look at D6. In this case, this is the top of the range, and we're going to take any values that are less than or equal to the top of the range. So we have 2 criteria. The bottom of the range at C6, anything that is greater than or equal to, and then we have the top of the range, anything that is less than or equal to D6. So in essence, it's taking anything that is between those values. So let's take a look and make sure that we can QC or quality check this. 43,069 between 4010 and 4030. If I take a look at my GL, here's 4010, here's 4030. So it should be summing everything from 4010 up to 4030. Let's take a look at these 3 values. 43,069, which you can see QC'd in the very bottom. 43,069. That's working exactly the way that we want. If we take a look at all of these formulas, they are all completely consistent with the one above. The only thing that is changing is the range from the lower end of the GL to the upper end of the GL. So as our chart of accounts changes, expands, contracts, or we want to bring certain information in or take other information out, all we need to do is make a determination as to what the lower end and upper end of the GL range are. Now you're watching this, you might say, well, that's all fine and good for January, but what happens when February comes in? Well, if you take a look, here is our export for January. Here is our export for February. Here is our export for March and for April. Now, if I go back to these formulas, as long as I build these formulas the right way, and I put this mapping down below where I'm saying, well, take a look at the January 2021 GL. This one is saying, take a look at the February 2021 GL. Take a look at the March, April, May, etc. So all I would really need to do is to copy all of my formulas plus the mapping, paste them in, and here is all of my new information. If you don't believe me, let's do another QC. 45,766 for February, 45,766 for February. If I copy again and paste going forward for March, 35,267. Let's go over to March, 35,267. So literally at the click of a button or in a short number of seconds, we're able to export our information from an ERP or other bookkeeping or accounting software, bring it into the model, and have it be presented in exactly the way that we want. Now, just one additional point, because sometimes people don't have the ability, knowledge, or desire to create these dynamic tables. If you wanted to, the way to do it would be to copy all of my data, go up to Insert, and assign a table right here. However, you might say, well, look, I don't want to have to remember to do that every time I have a data export. I just want to export the data into Excel or into a CSV file and go from there. So what I've done is I've created a second worksheet here. So rather than use these table references, I am instead just doing a handful of lookups. What we're doing here is instead of telling Excel what the name of the dynamic table is, I'm in essence just saying, well, no, take a look at the worksheet. January 2021. If it were February, it would be Feb 2021, March, Mar 2021, and etc. So this is the worksheet address. And if I can show you exactly what I mean by this, if I were to go to equals January 2021, you can see that I have this apostrophe, Jan 2021, apostrophe, and exclamation point. So what I'm doing here is I'm, in essence, replicating what that physical link would look like. Now, instead of me telling Excel that I wanted to look for the total column and I'm manually putting that in, what I'm doing in this instance is I'm saying X match, essentially match the word total within this data range right here in row number 1. And the total column appears in column number 5. Now, some of you might be asking, well, why would I want that lookup to take place? Why wouldn't I just hard code the number 5? Well, what if total is located in a different place the next time we run this query? Maybe it's located in column F next time and then column H the following. What this allows me to do is to say, find where the total column is, take that column. The second piece is to take a look at the GL account. So if we take a look at May, row number 1, GL account appears in column number 4, or column D. Again, the same idea. Every time that we run an export, maybe the GL account appears in column D this time, but maybe it's in column F next time, and maybe it's in column J the following. So this allows me to have quite a bit of flexibility. My total column location, at least in this case, is going to be in column E, and my GL account, at least in this case, is going to be column D. In any instance where it changes, these will self-update. Now again, let's take a look at this formula. SUMIFs, indirect F30. F30 is taking a look at January 2021, column E. That's exactly where I want my values to be pulling from. The second piece, or the second element, would be indirect F32. Taking a look right here, this is where I want my criteria range to be evaluated in column D. Of course, again, you can see column E is my total, column D is my GL account. And then finally, the last part of this formula is saying greater than or equal to the floor of C6, bottom of my GL range, and then also less than or equal to the ceiling of my GL range. In this case, it's D6. Okay, so it's essentially, again, saying, take a look at January, minimum of 4010, maximum of 4030, and take all of the values in between. My total is 43069, 43069. If I were to copy and paste my function over here, everything for February has been imported. Copy and paste for March, everything has been imported. Copy and paste for April, everything has been imported. Copy and paste for May, everything has been imported. So the point that I want to make to you here is by just using these two commands, SUMIFs and indirect, I can aggregate all of my data from whatever that data source looks like, present it in whatever format that I want, and be able to update it literally at the click of a button. I hope that this has been useful to you. I know that it has been for dozens of my clients. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I can be reached at carl@seidmanfinancial.com. Thanks.